turn it over to Vicky.
Hi everyone. Where should I start? Probably
Tell us about your business and how you got here.
Well, how we got to Florida is a whole different story, but basically Rob and I started a company called The Funky Fairy in the UK probably about 9-10 years ago. It started just with myself, and then as the business grew, and a bit like Jeff's story, as we grew, we ended up with 2 retail shops, 12 members of staff, and it was crazy. But one of the things that throughout that particular journey that sustained us was the massive amount of social media that we dedicated time to. I had many a moment when I was downtime in the store when it wasn't busy and I was tweeting or I was talking to somebody, and then it became apparent probably about year 3, year 4, we went to a couple of seminars and I saw somebody who is very, very influential across the board. He's a multi-millionaire, and he was talking about social media, and he was talking about how it is changing. And it's true. It's like, even when you come to conferences like this, there'll be a couple of people that they will come to the conference, but they won't be listening. They'll be on their phones, checking their emails, seeing what their friends are doing, all sorts of things. So we started changing everything to gear towards not just bombarding customers with, hey, look at me, this is what I sell. We changed it dramatically to, this is the baby grow that is with the baby in it, really cute, that a customer had shared with us, and we put it onto the social media. So because obviously it was a cute newborn baby wearing something cute, all our customers shared it to their friends. And all of a sudden it was like, this is not a chore anymore because we're not having to do a lot of the work. Customers are doing it for us. The word of mouth, which was once upon a time in the village from person to person, all of a sudden was 24/7 going on in the background. Facebook then approached us and said, we've noticed, for whatever reason we'd popped up on their radar, we've noticed some of the things you're doing and we'd like to help you. So we weren't really sure how that was going to pan out. We actually thought it was a bit of a trick. It's like, why would Facebook come to us? And they said, well, we'd like to feature you but help you. And they actually helped us with our advertising to the point where we literally became one of their success stories, and we were featured on their main page next to Lego. So the amount of, again, traffic we got from that, which was, again, although we had to pay for our adverts, they helped us with a Facebook manager. They're extremely rare. They're like the golden unicorn. So if you ever get approached by like Facebook and they'll say they've got a manager to help you, I grab it with open arms. But from that point onwards, we realised that there's so much you can do with the social media. So I don't know how many of you have you all got social media accounts for your businesses? Anyone? Some of you? No, a couple.
You mean what, like a Facebook page?
Facebook page, Snapchat page, Instagram. And does everyone post daily?
What is post dating?
Post daily. Post once a day.
Oh, okay.
So I think, how many people, put your hand, anyone post daily? A couple. Anyone post more than once a day? Okay. So it suddenly goes down to all these people in the room that when you've got your business, obviously you want to be encouraging people to see what it is you do as a business. And if you're not posting, you're not there. They'll look at somebody else. They'll look at somebody else's cool ice cream, somebody else's family having fun. With the other thing we also found that once we transitioned, which was literally this year, we made the move from London to Florida. We had a whole new ice cream business where we had to start from scratch. The company had been in business for 2 years, but Rob and I were then faced with all of a sudden this lovely, lovely Facebook page of the old company, which we could put a post out and would be shared 200-300 times without putting any money towards it. We're now, this time, 4 months on, at the same thing. We've got to start it all again. But the difference with this company is, and this is where the machines come in, Jeff's help comes in, all of that kind of kicks in, is that the reviews. And the biggest source now of people that are looking to take their children out for family ice cream will be through the reviews. When those people come through the door, we have a beach opposite us, we're in a lovely location, but that's great for holiday makers, but what about when they go home? Then we don't want to be stuck with an empty shop. So we've been working really, really hard to make sure that it's not just becomes about the holiday maker or the seasonal. We want to be open all year round. And the previous owners of the company actually had really good reviews. And then you had to take us two British people, put us in a different country with a different business and sustain those reviews. And we've already learned in 4 months lots of things, had to explain to customers why we keep the lids on. And some customers, obviously, literally, they want to see the products. And I have to agree with them. It's like when you walk in, I'm a very visual person. I like to see the colours. When you put lids on something and they're looking at something that's just completely plain, it's boring. And I get it. And I'm the first one to agree with them when they come in, because the kids do that and they're really excited, and then like, oh, there's white lids. And then we have to explain to them why we keep the ice cream like that. And if we take the lids off, and then if they want to sample, and we do sample, I did try not to go down the route of sampling, and that did not work well.
You caved.
I really didn't want to be black and blue. It did not work well. And I think, again, it panders to the location of what you want to, how far you want to go for your customer. And as well as working out, when we took it over, it was pandemonium with samples. It was, people would stand there and there was no limits to the way it was managed in the sense of how many samples they would have. And then we hit July 3rd, and we had to say to people, we need to keep moving things on. We had a 20-minute wait, which for a new business, people lined out the side the door. And we would kind of do it in such a way that was a little bit more subtle, that after the kind of the third sample, if it was a fourth sample, there was a little bit less on, or the thing I've been known to do, which is stand there with the scoop in my hand and no more sample spoons and say, right, who's ready to order? But you have to balance that, because people have come to expect samples, because they don't want to pay you $4, $5, $6 for an ice cream that stinks. Now, and I know, when you're using these machines and you're using the recipes, this is the killer bit, because what you'll get a kick out of, and I still, even now, I'm only 4 months in, obviously Jeff's a lot longer than me, is when you make a great ice cream, and we've just made a great Oreo pumpkin spice one, and it is amazing. And even I was shocked how amazing it was, and that's compared to all the other recipes we've made. Thank you. But we gave it the samples to people. Do you like Oreo? And they're like, we'll try this. And they weren't even prepared to try that. They wanted to try butter pecan or their regular thing. And you see their faces and how excited they are. And then you get the next person and the next person and the next person, all in the family will have this new product that you've only created literally the day before. And that particular flavour is literally gone to like number 2 out of, we chart on our system every flavour we sell. And in the space of 1 week, that's gone to number 2 of what everybody buys. And that's just literally from having a bit of diversity, using these machines. Then we also started sending out messages on Instagram, across the board, literally, about what we were doing, how we were doing it, doing a little competition as well, which, again, being such a new business, I didn't actually think would work. I thought, well, I'll try it. Screenshot, picture of this free cone with our Oreo pumpkin spice, bring it in, and, you'll get a free ice cream. And because we're so new, I thought, well, it may or may not work. An hour later, a girl came in. She said, I've seen your post. And she said, this was what the great thing was. She said, I've seen your post, but I might not want your free ice cream because I don't know what it tastes like. I might want to pay for the salted caramel. And I said, well, you can't say fairer than that. So she tried the ice cream we were giving away, sample for free. She went, I'll take that one. And little things like that. She then went off from that post and then posted to all her friends. But it's getting the community to learn about your products so that they can be your biggest advocates. Because when you fling your doors open and you're all excited and you've got this brand new store and you've got all these bits and you think you've worked so hard, you haven't worked hard at all. That's the easy bit. The easy bit is fitting out the shop. The easy bit is getting all your licenses. It's the hard bit is making sure you sustain the customers coming in and also having such a great experience that they go off, and the review sites. The review sites are so important. We get people coming in every day, and I'm there currently 7 days a week. And if I see someone that I don't recognise, I will generally say to them, oh, how did you find us? And more often than not, it's Google, occasionally Facebook, word of mouth. And then even then, when they say word of mouth, I go for, oh, so was it someone local? No, it was a realtor, or it was this person. And I expect that we're only 4 months in. By next year, that I won't have to be there 7 days a week, but there'll be somebody else that can take that over, because obviously then I can build more social media strategy to what we want to be. But that's the thing to bear in mind, is that this part is having this in place and having Jeff's book straight away, you're off to an easy start, because then you know you're going to make something that people are going to absolutely be amazed to eat. But I think unless sometimes you're very sceptical, and we came out and I watched, before we bought the business in America and we changed countries, I watched hundreds of hours of their videos. And because you're kind of a bit sceptical, oh, does it really work? Will it work for me? And I think even if you've got a small shop or a big shop, any area you can make it work. But it also comes down to how you deal with the customers, because the customers are the ones, and even if you're in retail having a bad day, you know, you've still got to put a smile on. You might have worked 12, 14 hours, but they're coming in. You know, sometimes they'll come in 10 minutes before you've closed, and they're the ones that still expect you to be smiling because they're coming in for their treat. But I say, you should make your choice whether or not you use. The question?
Vicki, what would you say the steps are from the beginning to get more social media conscious? What's the first thing people should do, and then the second and third?
Ideally, when you choose your company name, as soon as you've chosen your company name, make sure you secure your company name across every platform so that you can have the consistency. So, for example, obviously we're Hayes Ice Cream. We were very fortunate that the owners that we took over from had Hayes Ice Cream on Facebook. They had Hayes Ice Cream on Twitter. That consistency, so it doesn't get confusing. So if a new platform comes out, it may not necessarily be another Facebook, but if you've got a company in place, grab that name straight away, because you can guarantee, especially if you've got something ice cream, someone else will grab it. And they might be like a 16-year-old kid that wants to play around with something for fun, but that's your business. So if you've got that consistency in place, and then you can choose. You don't have to use every single platform. You can just choose which one that you want to be on. Hi there.
Hi. Just a quick question. So I just have a Facebook page that I use personally, and I just go to it once in a while. I'm not really obsessed with it yet. So when you first put up Hayes Ice Cream, how do you get people directed there? I understand somebody coming in and tweeting, 500 friends, but initially, how do you get everything, the traffic directed to your site?
It's not going to happen instantly unless you're prepared to throw money at any of these sites. Obviously now, that especially with Facebook being as it is, it depends what you want to do. If you know, for example, that the demographic of the people that you want are going to be whatever age you're targeting, 35 to 50. So, for example, you've got your Facebook page. Once you do some posts and you start getting people to like your posts, if you choose to, you can either choose to boost it, and you can go behind the scenes and basically target that advert and take that advert and say to Facebook, I want to spend $10 a day and I would like to show this advert to women that are 35 to 50. And then you go deeper. You can go as deep as you like. You can then say, well, actually, only ones that like cheerleading and soccer.
So you're paying for the...
Yeah. If you want to be specific, and it depends. If you want it to grow organically, nowadays, because so many people are on there, it's not like the days of 10 years ago where you could kind of post, and people would see it a lot more. Now Facebook, because obviously, I mean, even now, Facebook is starting to say that they're filling up their ad space, and anyone who's seen all the ads...
Only 2 adverts are viewed by a person a day.
Is that on Facebook? So unless you're then liking that page and obviously then physically going to visit it. But for us, is that the proof of the pudding, I guess, is that when we started out this journey, before we bought this business, I wanted to prove a point to my son, because I've got 2 older boys in the UK who are not social media minded at all. And I said to them, and I did it more to kind of promote him than me, in the sense of to get him to do something like teenage boys. And I said, well, look, I'm going to start an Instagram account based on ice cream. ice cream all around the world, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to post 5 to 6 times a day, and if you do this with, he was into menswear, you do this with your blog, you can sustain a living. And you could see he didn't believe me. He just didn't believe me. So I knew it was kind of not necessarily going to last. But I started that Instagram page in February. I've put absolutely no money whatsoever towards it. So now February, October, there's now 17.1 thousand followers on that one page. I'm not making any money out of it. I'm not targeting anybody. But I wanted to prove to him and myself that it could be done.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
I was just going to say, that's had no money posted towards it. And the kicker for that particular account is, I'll probably say 95% of the posts that I've put on there aren't mine. They're reposts from other people. I found them and gone, that's an awesome photo. I've reposted it onto that account to show people. And that's the brand of the Ice Cream Adventurer, because there's all different ice creams around. There is more ice creams than I ever knew existed in every single country that people do, the fads, the trends. And so now, if I put a post out on there that's a good post from, say, like a friend said to me, well, actually, I've got a really cool shot, post it onto that account, they range anywhere from 300 likes going up to 8,000 likes. And that's crazy. That's crazy. All these people looking at stuff that's not costing me anything.
So you threw out a number, $300 a month, right? $10 a day.
Yep.
First question, is that realistic for Facebook?
It depends on who you're targeting, and it depends as well. It will give you, on the drop down, it will tell you, it will say $10 a day equates to an average of. Now, back in the day that when Rob and I were advertising, when we were doing that, we were actually getting more. It was amazing. And like, it's that point you knew it's never ever going to last, but it used to say approximately if you spend £50 a day, you'll get 2,000 to 3,000 average views or clicks or something like that. But because then you look at your advert and you can see your organic reach is like, I don't know, 3,000, and then it does a little bar where you say paid, 5,000, 6,000. But then obviously the back end of that, those ones there, they're sharing with other people. So you're then getting more traffic that you're not paying for.
Okay, they're not going to, you can't pay $10 and have one day. So are there contracts?
Yeah, you pay whatever you like. You want to do 1 day, 3 days, 5 days. I've put an advert on, and I've looked at it after a couple of hours, and I've looked at it and I'm like, it's not one of our better ones, and I've turned it off.
And how do the sites market those? How do they zero in on what your demographic would be?
I tell them.
Right,
them
but
where I want my advert to show.
where do they put them?
They have Facebook, obviously knows everything about everybody. So they knows all your likes, dislikes. There's people that have obviously put, like mums that have had babies, people that have just got engaged. You can even target people that have just got married. It is so specific.
So how
now.
would you apply that to an ice cream store?
You can... Well, actually, Rob used to run more Facebook adverts than me, so he's waving frantically.
So from the perspective of what we can do, is we can target people that are actually going to come to our area on holiday. People that are saying they're going to come to Indian shores. So we can target them in their home country or town or countries or wherever, and target them before they even come. They can plan to come to our store. So we can show them the newsfeed. So when you log into Facebook and you look at your profile or whatever, it will come up as an advert saying, hey, we recommend Hayes Ice Cream. And then they'll see the reviews, and then they'll go, hey, this will be a good place to go, part of our journey. And
So you can specify as a demographic people coming into the area.
Into the area.
What else?
You can do it by age, by gender, by...
But if you do it by age, it's not target specific. I mean, it's all over.
You could narrow it right
Because
down.
as you know, we generally draw from 3 miles away.
Yeah, so if you want to do it for yours, you could do it by zip code area.
Okay.
You could just locate just a specific, for example, the area where all your demographic is. You could just target everybody in there. Now, admittedly, it may not necessarily work if they don't have a Facebook account. You just need the age of them. So then you might want to go on to something else that may be a little wider in that sense. So
For instance?
So you could go for a bigger area, or you could go for a different age demographic in that sense.
And how about something other than Facebook?
So you can do Twitter's not so good nowadays.
No.
Instagram is better. Instagram's part of Facebook, which is they're using the same algorithm, so they're using the same display methods.
Generally, it's going to be Facebook, right?
Facebook is the big one.
What about Google?
Google's pretty good for search. YouTube is really good. Videos are excellent. We use videos quite a lot now. just even sort of 3 or 7 videos are much better than static posts.
The second biggest search is Google.
Yeah, so YouTube is pretty good. I mean, I tend to go to YouTube to learn stuff, not so much about kind of where to go and what to do. Yeah, I mean, it's getting a little bit better about sort of shop reviews and stuff like that.
Are there people emerging as an industry who will do this for companies?
Oh yeah. And I've been very, very careful about approaching any of these companies because they'll take a lot of your money and give you very little.
So how would I do that?
We always say what we've done is there's lots of videos on YouTube about it. Learn yourself. If you're happy to take the time and learn yourself, you'll go through more trial and error and learn what's good for your business than somebody else that's more interested in making money for their business off of you.
So what would be a good YouTube search to begin with?
Advertising on Facebook,
Okay.
advertising on
Okay.
Instagram.
Because you could also do for your area, you could do something like where you're going to have an event. So you promote an event and then you've got it all up on your Facebook page and then you start targeting the people that live local to you and say, obviously, this event. And then you'll start to see people saying, you know, not interested or
And
thinking
how long
about
do
going.
you give it on a daily basis before you pull it and say that's not working? What's your trial time?
It depends on what you're trying to achieve as well. That's the other thing, because obviously if you're saying that you're selling something because it's seasonal, because before that we had a retail business, so we'd have seasons and we'd have things like that. So 3-4 days for an advert. Sometimes, if an advert's really good and it's obvious that it's really good, you get in there quick and throw more money at it because you can see it's resonating with the customer by whatever you're offering, if it's a freebie or if it's cute. And so it's one of those things you keep an eye. It's like watering a plant. You're kind of looking after it the whole time.
Aside from people showing up to patronize your place or take advantage of a special that you put on, how else do you track them to see if it's successful?
Well, you'll see very much on that page whether it's worth doing again, in the sense of obviously the return that you're getting from the numbers. You're not always going to know unless you know your customers. And
How many people clicked on it?
Yep, you'll be able to see that. Literally all the details come out for that. But the other thing that I also found out recently, which I had no idea about, but I don't particularly use Yelp, but Yelp have a facility where you can pay to advertise to be above your competitors. So if, for example, you're in Brooksville and there's a couple of other ice cream places around that might have better reviews and might be more populated, you can actually pay and it will appear when somebody types Brooksville, the 2 5-star ones will be there, but you're paying for an ad, you'll be above. And not everybody always looks at it and goes, oh, that's an ad, so they've paid money. So I've not used that facility yet, but I can imagine it could be quite an eye-catching one. Hi.
On Facebook, if you cast a fairly wide net, or like in the instance of seasonal people,
Yep.
let's say that they come to your shop and they really like it, so when they go home, they want to send for it.
Yep.
Do you do shipping?
We don't currently ship, no. We have lots of customers that would be jumping for joy if we did. We have said that's something that we might look at. At the moment, we're just on the verge of working out with Uber Eats, which is quite an unusual thing because there's not many ice cream places that have there's a lot in California that do ice cream for Uber Eats, but not in Florida.
I think there are certain days of the week they ship, like Mondays or Wednesdays, because there's a limited time with the dry ice and so. But I didn't know if it was worth it to even bother.
Yeah, at this stage, because we're quite new to it, we're sort of finding our feet with everything as well. But yeah, there's lots of avenues you can go. But the other big thing I need to mention as well is that when you get reviews, hopefully for your sake and your business's sake, they're going to be positive. Either way, whether they're positive or negative, respond. Respond. That person has taken time out of their day to, in most cases, visit you, spend their hard-earned cash with you, bring their children or their loved ones to you. The worst thing you can do after they put, whether it be negative or positive, you just go, oh, yes, great, got a 5-star review and move on. They've taken the time out of their day. We respond to every single review across every single platform.
Well, a few weeks ago, we got 487 5-star great reviews, and we got 1 negative one.
Yep.
We wouldn't let this lady's daughter sing on karaoke night because she was 5 years old, and nobody likes that anyway. So they told her no.
Yep.
But we had 1 dislike. and one of our girls said, oh, I'm going to get back on and answer her.
Yeah.
And I said, don't do it, because all you're doing is getting into a pissing contest, because she's going to respond back to that, and you're going to create this out of that.
That's what I used to think. That's what I used to think.
That's why you have to really watch how you respond.
Yeah, you just have to be very, very careful how you manage it, and you have to handle it in such a way as you would as she was in front of you, saying, "I'm very sorry," you know, as you would fully appreciate. We have a busy store, you know, we take on board your comments, and you know, maybe it's something we'll look at doing in the future. Thank you for coming, and then
Well,
you know they may
I still got to
respond.
disagree, because she's going to come right back. If she took the time to write a nasty review, no matter what you say, you can't appease her. She's going to take
Maybe.
the time to write a second one.
But it's not about, sorry to interrupt, but it's not necessarily about her. It's about what other people will see. It's about the impression other people are going to see about how you respond to that person. If you respond to others, or if you ignore everybody, they're going to say, well, they don't respond to reviews. But if you ignore that one because of that fear, they're going to go, well, is that how they deal with it? If I have a complaint, how will they deal with me? How will they interact with that store? And people are naturally negative anyway, because people will go and go, people come into our store going, I hope this is going to be as good as the reviews. And you kind of go, you try it. You know? I'm not here to convince you I make it, I love it. That's why I'm here. I've done a lot of work to get here. If you love it, great. Tell someone about it.
Well, that's a good point, how you respond, because they're reading that too.
Yeah, and if she wants to come back, and there will be people come back. I ran the gauntlet of my first personal negative one, and it's kind of like eBay reviews. You always know that you buy from a seller that's got 10,000 feedbacks, but don't you spend 5 minutes of your life when they get one negative. What did they get? What did they get? What did some? You don't dwell on the fact that person sent out 9,990 things perfectly. As a human being, we seem to be trained to find the kind of one thing that's going to be, oh, look, you know, they missed the delivery for that poor child's birthday. But what about all these other people over here? And we had a really, really busy evening, and we just had one particular customer who decided that in her wisdom, even though all her family had their ice creams, she was going to go for a 7th sample. And at that point, I said to her, we need to move on. And the girls were around me, and I wasn't rude, and I wasn't nasty, and that's all I said, we need to move on. And behind her was about 45 people that were kind of almost like that, like wilting, like it's like, please, like, move over. And we carried on the night, and my words to Rob were, mark my words, give it 48 hours, something will come up. And sure enough, it did, literally within about 12 hours. But what I learned was, and I think this is where it then tells to what Rob said, she put that she wasn't allowed to take more than one sample. So it was a little bit of, and then the woman was rude, which I wasn't. She didn't like the way I spoke to her.
Of course, it's always that way.
Yeah, so it sometimes happens like that. So I responded and said, I'm sorry that you experienced this. Unfortunately, we have to monitor these things, in bigger situations. And fully expecting there might be a response, but there wasn't. And I've had one other, and this is the thing we
So
have.
you wouldn't write back, you fat slob, one sample's enough for you, don't come back.
I wanted to take Wendy's stance and say, well, actually, you actually took 6 samples, and the CCTV footage shows the 6 samples.
And please don't come back.
But
You write that, but don't press enter.
It's always that send button, isn't it?
yeah. But that's the thing, you just got to monitor it. And the same way as that I also recently learned that customers are way, way, way smarter than you'll think they are. You might think they're just coming in for ice cream. We've actually had a customer that admitted to us that they actually check, I'm not sure what you guys call it, but what's it called? Where the State Health Department has a website, phenomenal wealth of information where everybody's kind of tripped up. And if your store is good, great, good standing. But if you, like some of the stores, as we subsequently discovered, have been closed down for health reasons. And we had a customer come in with his family, and he admitted to us that he'd actually gone onto this website before he came to visit us to see how good we were with food hygiene. And whenever he takes his family out anywhere in Florida, he lives in Orlando, he always checks that website before he takes his family in. And it got me thinking, because I thought, well, I don't with my daughter, but then having some of the stores that we've seen nearby to us, some of the violations that they've got, I thought, well, yeah, he's probably right in the sense of obviously him not wanting to kind of risk his family's health. But we just think they're popping in for ice cream. Some people is way, way different than that as to what they're coming in for. They're coming in because they've checked out you online, that you're clean, you're tidy, that your reviews. Some come in because they do want to prove you wrong. But those reviews don't cost you anything. Again, if you give good service, you give the good ice cream, you do all the things that you need to do, those reviews will come in and obviously help you sell your business without you having to put any money towards it.
Just to finally add to the negative aspect, we used to get very, very defensive when we used to have negative reviews back in the UK. In fact, it would take us probably 2-3 days to get over a negative review. It used to wind us up, and I'm very much a Scorpion, and I would go up and I'd check their own Facebook page, what they've done to other people. And I'd almost stalk them.
I'm there.
So am I.
The Scorpion.
But once we got over that element and we didn't take it personally, we started to realise actually they had a valid point of view from their perspective. We may not necessarily agree that they had a valid point of view, but it also adds balance. When we've got 5-star reviews across all the board, people come on and go, you can't have, these must be fake.
Right.
So when we have a negative, we go, okay, they had a negative experience, we're really sorry, come in, we'll try and make it right next time. But for us, it's good because it adds a positive experience to the overall balance of people looking at us going, well, actually they're doing really good, but they do make the odd mistake. So for us, it's not necessarily a negative.
What you're talking about in general, I was just saying earlier that I went to a whole bunch of shops, almost obsessively looking at everyone that I go to.
Yep.
And my impression with most of them is that, and hopefully, I'm sure yours is an exception, but I kind of got the impression that they were all like maybe college kids who were just sort of bored. And so it would seem that training your people is like a big part of it, because some of them just were just hanging out, and
the kids don't want to be there.
Was zilch.
Yeah, some of the customer service, kids don't want to be there. They
what
don't,
most of them were like.
and also what they don't understand is they come into an ice cream shop thinking it's all fun, and they don't realise that you need to be physically and mentally fit for it. Especially even like when the girls are on 3-4 hours, scooping hard ice cream, and even that's a knack. They think that's going to be a doddle, and then they start realising, oh, hang on a minute, there's an art to this. But again, the customer service and the training that you give them, and we're 10 years in and we're still learning, because each individual that comes to us that we recruit, you'll see that CV kind of attitude, and then once that's gone and they're in it, and then you'll explain to them about food preparation and everything that goes with it. And that's why, as a mum and pop shop, it's a very different experience, that people love coming in to see that, because they don't come in as a local business just for that aspect. They come in to see the whole thing. They ask about our daughter. They ask about, if we want to go home yet. When we come in, they'll ask about how we got on with the hurricane. It's a community. And if you build your ice cream store with good ice cream and the right products, and you build it like a community, you'll always have people that will talk good of you and tell others. If you build it like, I'm just going to make pure money, the passion will be gone. The passion needs to be way up there with that you enjoy making ice cream. If you don't want to work 7 days a week and 12, 14 hours a day, and you think you can skimp by closing 2 or 3 days a week, this business is not the right business for you.
Do you get involved in community fundraisers or events very often?
Well, we've only been there 4 months, but what we did before the hurricane was we had a surreal experience where we suddenly realised we'd just arrived and we were about to lose our whole business with the hurricane coming, because we're on the Gulf Coast. And then Rob and I had a chat about it, and I said, well, one thing's for sure, I know we're going to lose all the ice cream, because whether we're in Florida or whether we drive up to Atlanta, we're going to lose all the ice cream. So we put social media messages out there and said, if you're in the Indian Shores area, come and get free ice cream. All we're asking is that there's a tub on the side, donations for the Red Cross. Because I said to the people coming in, people genuinely came in and were like, you're giving away free ice cream? I said, yeah, because I know I'm not going to be able to do anything with it. 2 days from now, it's going to have to be all dumped. So I think over the course of that, and then when we returned, we raised $150 for the Red Cross. But it was something that, it was like, the best thing to do in the circumstance is to turn it around rather than just go, well, I'm not selling it to anyone and it's going to get ruined and I'm going to throw it away. And the community, we got so much, it was just an ad hoc thing, which is like, I don't really want to throw this away. What can I do with it? And I knew there wouldn't be tons of people because obviously a lot of people already evacuated, and we took it down the municipal offices, and we literally said, because we didn't want it spoiled, we were passionate about our product. There's nothing worse, and Jeff will testify how much gallons he lost in a hurricane, to not give it to somebody and see it all washed away.
I could have given it to that lady who ate all the samples.
Exactly. You could have shipped it all over.
She'll be
to
right
her.
over.
Actually, there is a positive note on that, because obviously a few days after that, her boyfriend did actually pop up on a different platform. And as soon as he started typing the response, and as soon as I saw it, I could not stop laughing, because obviously I'd got quite upset personally about being called something that, you know, I'd be the first to say if I was. But on this particular occasion, I wasn't. So I was like, I know exactly who you are because the way you worded this. Because we're such a small company, it was great. And I had the beauty of, I thought, I'm going to get to the response before Rob does, because he'll tell me not to send it. But I just put on there, thank you for your comments. I believe we've addressed your girlfriend's comments on another platform. And that was it. And like I said to Rob, I said, I know, I don't care whether they read it or don't read it. But it's such a small world when you're a mum and pup shop. And people will talk about you whether you like it or not. So it's really how much time. I mean, I love social media and I love ice cream, and I love being in retail. So between Rob and I, that works as such a great team. But if you have a great team in place, people you can rely on, if you're not there all the time, all of that, you know, the money is. Yes, we need the money, and obviously if we don't make money, obviously Rob and I will be back to the UK. But it's a byproduct of the success. And seeing people taste the samples, it never tires. When I see people taste the samples, you see their eyes roll to the back of their head. And it's like giving them some kind of weird drug they've never had before. Their eyes roll to the back of their head and they go, wow. And that's what I want to try and translate into somehow. The next thing for social media for me is to get some kind of time-lapse camera that I can get that on people. Because it's like bottling it up. It's like seeing, like, they don't expect it to be that good, which makes you think, what crappy ice cream have they had elsewhere that they come in and this is like the best thing? And you know that because when they leave out the door, very often, we put signs up round just saying, you know, follow us on all these platforms. And on the receipts, which very rarely a receipt goes out if you'd like to review us. So they're not even said. It's not even like I say to people, oh, please review us. We don't. We let them do what they want to do. But literally most of them review us within 48 hours of coming.
You know, being very newly open in a small business, how much of your time and people do you have devoted to all of your accounts and, you know, running and replying to all of your reviews?
I'm a bit obsessive.
How do you balance that with all of your other, you know, business tasks that you need to get done?
I balance it in the space of there is so much time that you can spend checking on friends' feeds and all the other things that people do, watching Game of Thrones, Netflix, catch up, chatting with friends. Because we're growing a business from scratch and because we've always been very, very dedicated to what we do, is I probably spend most of my waking time, if I'm not serving customers, and this is the other thing, sometimes customers will walk in and they'll see me on my phone and they may assume, which quite a lot do, it's like your teenager thing that you're texting or whatever, but I'm not. I'm putting out content all the time. And the videos is the biggest thing that will come through next with Insta Story, video in your store, video in your staff. And then we did it with the London company where we actually had people visit from other parts of the UK to meet members of our staff because they'd seen them, a bit like when Steve's on camera all the time. People come in and they, like one of our girls, where's Kirsten? Guy had come all the way from Devon. Like he'd literally taken a day off work to come up and train because he'd watched with videos and he'd evolved the process of our lives. And when he came to meet us in person, he said, oh, I didn't think you would be so down to earth. He said, like you are on the camera. I said, well, we're exactly the same. We're not. It's not like the Kardashians. It's our business. We've put it online for you to see what we do, what we make. And we were also very lucky that the team we had in London, we had some great personalities. So we kind of spent a lot of time laughing, which is, when you're in a retail business, you've got to have that downtime as well. But I think I should leave it there, because otherwise I could probably talk.
Like the press secretary for the President of the United States,
fine.
but thank you very much for coming. We're going to break. That was fantastic. What a great amount of knowledge. We're going to break for lunch now, and we'll bring it in and then we'll get back to making some ice cream after lunch.
You were going to say more ice cream's coming in.
Great job. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. That was wonderful.
What? Well, wait, you had a question first, didn't you?
Right. So when you're getting a place and you need to design the layout of the kitchen, and there have to be certain legal requirements, I would assume, for where to put certain equipment,
Only one.
things like that. Oh, really?
Only one. The only legal requirement is that your mop sink has to be 6 feet away from your 3-bay sink. That's it. You notice how far mine is, right?
Yeah.
About 1.5 feet, right? It is what it is.
Nobody ever bothered?
No. You really, remember we talked about making a triangle of your workspace, so that a triangle of your workspace, so that your batch freezer and your triple sink and your prep table make a triangle, so that presumably you're working alone, and that'll make it easy because you'll go from your, you'll wash your hands in the sink, and you'll take your product out of the batch freezer. It goes on the counter, and then you rinse it in the sink. So it's it's really a circle, but it's a triangle. That's how they lay things out. And the only real requirement I'm aware of is that your mops, you have to have 3 sinks. You need a 3-bay sink, which is for washing, rinsing, sanitizing. And then you need a hand sink, which is to wash your hands. And then you need a mop sink to clean your mops or whatever they do with mops in that. Can we talk freely on this thing?
You bet.
Okay.
Because I'm going to kind of
Okay,
contradict you.
I don't use, we've been open 8 years. I don't think our hand sink has been used yet. And we're all immaculately clean. But think about it. I have a 6-foot 3-bay sink, and the first bay is filled with, warm, soapy water. And so where are you going to wash your hands? In a little 9-inch sink with a thing coming down where the water doesn't get hot? No, you're just going to wash your hands in the 3-bay sink. And that's what we all do. We run hot water, which is scalding hot, and we wash there. We rinse in the middle part, and then we're on our way, and we wash 30 times a night. But the mop sink is a ridiculous thing too, because nobody's going to take, what we do is we fill our rolling bucket, the yellow thing, what's it called? The rolling yellow thing, and we fill that, we put the Fabuloso or Pine Sol in that, and we use the mops, and we mop the whole store, and then they take that, wheel it outside, and right down the drain, outside. That's how we do it. Because my machine is water cooled. These are water cooled.
Yeah.
My emery is water cooled, and so it has 2 hoses coming out. One hose needs to be attached to a water source. It's just like any kind of engine, and it cools the motor down. And then that water, after it cools it down, comes out a second hose and has to be somewhere. So the somewhere I have it is in my mop sink. The faucet on the mop sink, the hose attaches to it, it goes into the machine, and then the extraction hose or extrusion hose comes into the mop sink, and that's it. And when I teach how to get your machine ready and running, you mix it with the motor, and then when you put the refrigeration on, which is the one on the right, just take an eye and look in the sink and make sure the water is coming out. There's a safeguard built in. If it wasn't coming out, if somebody had shut the water off or whatever, the machine would cut off. But it's just a good thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a good thing to do. Just those are the steps. And if you get in that habit, because you're going to, make a lot of ice cream over your life or product, and after it comes out, after you turn on the refrigeration, just glance over into wherever your hose is coming out and make sure the water's running freely. That water will be warm in the beginning, gradually coming to be hot water. Some people reuse it, recycle that water in the second bay of their sink or third bay of their sink, because it's good, clean, hot water. It's the same water. There's nothing corrupting it. It doesn't come out with metal filings or anything. It's just clear water. You can
Going through
drink
all
it.
copper lines.
Yeah, you
in the
can drink
machine.
it. So some people reclaim that water. I don't, because my water bill runs $27 a month, and I'm not a great environmentalist, so I let it go. But you can reclaim it.
My answer is all of his, plus a bit more about how you're going to set up for an ice cream parlor.
Oh, was that the question? I forgot.
That was the question. The health department is your best friend and your worst nightmare. They're what protects you. The health department protects you from being sued for having an unclean operation, and they can also drive you nuts over a little nitpicking thing. What I suggest to people they do is once they find the location, they call up their health department. And they're all different around the country, and yet they're all the same. My father used to say, back in the early 70s, I'd say, Dad, an inspector's here. Fire department, health department, whatever. Inspector's here. Say, fine, give him $25, send him on his way. I said, Dad, it's modern times.
So you
can't
give him
do
50.
that. He said, give him 50 and send him on his way. You can't do that anymore, or if you could, it would be wonderful. But you can't. So you have to work with your health department, and I hope you get a good one. Sometimes you don't. But the basic premise of the health department is they have a book this thick of rules and regulations. And the inspector that they send out, let's call him Phil for the moment, and Phil is 22 years old. They send Phil out. He's got this book that's that thick with rules and regs. He's driving a Ford with no chrome on it, and his only hope for advancement is that his boss dies. And so that's the problem. He's got
No
a boss.
stereotyping there, right?
Oh, I'm stereotyping the whole thing. I'm profiling. So Phil only wants to do what he has to do to not get his boss on his back. And so you have to work with that premise, and again, maybe you'll get a good one. But you work on that premise and you work around it. So the first thing you do is after you find the property that you think you want or that you go ahead and get, you call in the health department and you start a diary. You say, on this date, January 10th, I met with Phil, the inspector, and he looked around and he said, I don't see any problem why you can't open an ice cream parlor here. Good. Write it down. The only thing is, the health codes say that we need a dairy tile floor and dairy tile walls, and that dairy tile floor costs about $10 trillion an inch. So you write it down. And he has other regulations about the lighting and other stuff. Just write it all down and then talk to someone like Jeff or me or someone else that you trust in the industry and just say, this guy wants a really expensive floor. Well, I'll say, what's down there now? He said, oh, it's just raw concrete. Okay, go back to Phil and say, I know you wanted a dairy tile floor, but how would you feel about me you doing a two-stage epoxy floor? Here, the old people in Florida paint their garage floors bright colors, and they've got a beautiful air-conditioned house, and yet they sit out in the garage with a TV. It's just what they do. But we can take from that idea, and we can use a special Rust-Oleum paint on the floor, cover it over with a sealer. The whole job's going to cost you about $90 instead of $10 million. And so you say to Phil, how about I do the two-stage epoxy floor? Is that okay? Yeah, well, that seals off just as good as dairy tile. Sure. Write down the date that Phil said it. And you're going piece by piece what Phil said and writing down the date that he approved it or disapproved it. If he disapproved it, you come back to us and we look for another alternative. So that when Phil comes in on May 10th with his boss, and the boss says, what's with this floor? Oh, Phil approved it on January 10th. Oh, well, that's okay, because the boss isn't going to go against his own employee. He taught the employee. So he's not going to, he said, my guy knows his stuff. And if he says that's okay, that's okay. So you keep a diary. You're not being combative. You're not being problematic. You're just keeping a diary and just saying, is there an alternative way to do this? So that's the first step so that you can get open on the day you did. I had a customer up in just on the other side of the Tappan Zee Bridge in New York. And the man, quite frankly, was very arrogant. And he was opening up an ice cream parlor with a restaurant. He was so arrogant that on the day that Phil came by with his boss, the guy was an hour and a half late for the meeting. Well, that really ticked off the health inspector. So the health inspector pulls out the blueprints and says, I see you ran a PVC pipe under this concrete floor over to this drain. Nobody inspected it. I want to see it. And he made him tear up the floor. He had the right to do that. Now that's an extreme answer, but you got to stay one step ahead of these people who are doing their job and they're trying to keep you clean. And then you get into little things like Jeff mentioned about the sink, the slop sink. That's absolutely right. I ran into a situation where the audience can't see this, but in the back room here we have a 3-compartment sink, and the space was so tight we put the batch freezer right next to it, or the owner did. And Phil, the inspector, no way. I mean, dirty water from the sink could get into the ice cream. There's no way we're going to do this. Well, Phil acquiesced when we said we would put up a plexiglass panel that stuck out 2 feet so that it separated the two, and he said, we'll let that go. Jeff's comment is a lot easier in your initial planning. Don't put the slop sink next to the ice cream making. As far as, let me get a prop here. As far as the sinks, they've gotten really sticky about that. There's 2 types of sinks. In the old days, a sink was put together by welding this side of stainless steel with that side. And what we did, we didn't weld it, we silver soldered it back then. And so the sink had seams. Nowadays, a lot of health departments, most health departments won't allow a seamed sink. They want the sink to have national sanitation approval, just like my machines. I think we're the only ones that have all the approvals. And what that means is you take a piece of stainless steel and you stamp it, and so it has beveled edges. That's an NSF sink. It takes the price of a $200 sink up to $2,000, so look for one on the used market, because after all, there's no moving parts in a sink, and if it comes out of a restaurant, that's great. What they want out of the sink, though, is the largest part in your store has to be completely submersible. So here's a 24-quart dasher. If I had to buy a sink to submerge this, that's going to be a lot of money. Look how deep that draw is. It's going to be insane.
Well, put it the other way.
Well, that's the other way. You could put it this way, and now I've got 3 compartments. Look how long this sink is. I only got an 800 square foot store. That's a little insane too. So what do? You've got this square box that is 1 compartment of your sink. You put it on a diagonal like that, and you drop it in. So now the diagonal is 19.5 inches instead of taking up, instead of this much space, it's taking up this much space.
Did you figure this out by yourself?
Long time ago.
Wow.
Back when I was 5.
Put it in the diagonal.
When I was 5.
I got to write that down.
Well, you'd be surprised how many people buy sinks by the length or the depth, and they have paid $4,000 for a sink that was absolutely unnecessary. And if you're buying a CB350, which is half the size of this, I guarantee you, because you're not going into business to remain stagnant, you're going into business to grow, like Jeff did. He started with a CB350, went to a 24, went to another 24. You expect to grow, so buy your sink if you can afford it. It's always, everything comes down to money. If you can afford to do it today, buy one that'll fit this measurement, 19.5, as opposed to the CB350.
Or diagonal.
Or diagonal. But a CB350 is never going to meet the diagonal of a 24. So consider that, but it does have to be an NSF sink. But the main thing is it's a negotiation. You negotiate with the health department every step of the way, keeping them friendly, because they really are your protection. You know, once they approve you, you're good to go. Nobody can touch you. Your competitors can't call up and say, I saw a rat in his place. Well, no, that's not what the records show or anything else like that. So I think it's very important to work with these people, and hell, being nice, you might end up with an inspector who's friendly and happy to come see you, because just like I told you, a Donald Trumpism, be nice to your bankers because nobody else is. Be nice to your health department because nobody else is. Everybody complains about their health inspector except the smart people. The smart people get along with their health inspector and realize that they're doing their job for my good. They're here to protect me. So it's important.
So to answer your question, the kitchen, how big's our kitchen? A 7 by 10, 8 by 10, something like that. And we also serve from that. And so you need a room for that. You need storage in the back, and whatever kind of serving you're going to do up front. That's pretty minimal.
Yeah. So,
Did
I
that
mean,
answer your question about an hour ago?
No, it was very informative. It's good to know because I didn't know anything about it.
Well, there is a caveat to all this, and in the real world, the inspectors, who are usually 20 years old, they're in your store for 8 to 10 minutes because they have so many to do in a day, and they don't want to hang around your store. Unless you have a lit fire pit in the middle, they're basically going to go around, shoot the gun into your freezers for temperature, your refrigerator for temperature. They're going to look around. They're not going deep. And I found that if you ask for permission prior, you're in a world of trouble because then their self-importance steps up to the plate, and that's when they'll start looking for seams in your sink.
Right.
But if you just go ahead and do it, what is that expression? It's better to
better
ask,
to beg
beg
forgiveness,
for forgiveness
than
and ask for approval.
Yeah, my main concern was like you were saying about the drain in the floor. Doing something like that and having to tear up a $10,000 floor.
Yeah, but that's only because the guy, pissed him off by not showing up. You don't need a drain in the floor for an Emery Thompson. It's pushing the water away. So we're sitting in my teaching school right now. My office is next door. My desk is 25, 30 feet away. I could literally go up the side of the building, over the top, and down again if that's where my sink was. So you don't need a floor drain.
A floor drain is nice to have.
It's
but not
luxury. I have
essential.
two.
Yeah, not essential.
Not
A
essential.
friend of mine owns a store, has two 24-quart Emerys, and he has 2 floor drains. And at the end of the production day, he uses a garden hose to clean out the machine, and everything goes down there. Yes,
Do
Danny?
they have any other like little nitpicky things like grease traps or like any other things to consider? Like
Not in my experience, no.
I've found some things, you'll just have to hear them and then abandon the idea. One was down in Boynton Beach, Florida, where the guy wanted to make his own waffles. Big deal. It's a waffle iron. It actually had NSF and UL approval for the waffle iron. So he's got the waffle iron. You put the mix in, you put down the handle. 2 minutes later, you got a waffle. They said he needed a $40,000 Ansel fire system. And I said, you can fight with that health inspector for the next year and a half and not get open, or you can just abandon the idea of making waffles. That was a rare exception. There should have been no reason he couldn't do waffles, but he was not going to win that one. So better to back off it. I mean, you can challenge something. I mean, we've had people say in cities like Chicago, they'll say, well, you need a grease trap in the floor, which is a couple of $1,000 big deal. And again, I'm a smart aleck, so I said, all you have to tell the guy is, if any dairy is going down that drain, I'm losing money, because all the dairy should be going into the ice cream and then into the freezer. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And all you can do is work with them. That's why I like to get them in early and ask them, or not ask them, Jeff's right. If you volunteered, you're dead. Just let them hear what they said. Because if he comes up a month later when you're halfway into construction and says, you need a grease trap. You didn't tell me about that. The terrazzo floor is already down. He'll back off because he didn't tell you and he should have. And now it's too late. And it's really whim whether you needed it or not.
On the subject of grease traps, some states require them for this ice cream making, which is ludicrous, but they now have portable grease traps that you can buy. They're self-contained units. They mount under your sink, I believe, and it's $2,500 and that's it. So you can always circumvent the laws that way.
That's good.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Great.
Okay, the word fluff.
Fluff.
As you know by now, I do this class, and the class is 2 full days, rather extensive, on everything you need to know to open and operate an ice cream place. After you take the class, you're privy to a Facebook page, and I saw some of you already went on it yesterday, you did. It's a closed page for all the people who've gone through the class, and now there's hundreds of them, and they talk about things that concern you, flavors of ice cream and a grease trap or whatever. And Merrily runs it, and she will let you in if you're a graduate of my class. All that being said, I noticed the other day that she, the one who started this thing and runs it, talked about fluffing her ice cream. And I read further, and she said, she asked the question of the group, how often do you guys fluff your ice cream? How long do you fluff it for? And I was a little confused, and then I understood what she's saying. What she's saying is that when the ice cream comes out, let's say you're going to get 6 gallons out, which is what I get out of my machine. I get 6 gallons out. Well, if you shut the refrigeration and leave the motor running, as Steve said earlier, it's like whipping cream. It's going to become more voluminous. And that's what she does. And I was astonished that she does that. Why on earth would anybody do that? It makes no sense. She's trying to squeeze 7 gallons out of a 6-gallon batch. And it's really hurting the product, I think. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm trying to formulate how to answer her, but why do that? Why take a product when you extract it? Is it extract or extrude? Okay.
Either one.
Why take a product that when it comes out, you tasted how creamy and delicious that first product was? Even the second, all of them that we've made so far, they're smooth and they're creamy and they're rich. Well, imagine taking a little bit in your plate with a beater or a mix and then making it more and then tasting it. It wouldn't be as good. And somebody asked about the profit, Danny, you, about the profit of this, and we talked a lot about this in class. 2 things are at work here. One, the products that you use to make your ice cream. You can go to the store and buy Walmart sandwich cookies, is an example we used, or you can go for the Oreos. The Walmart are $1.99. The Oreos are $4.99 for a less quantity. Well, which you're going to use? Don't use the cheap ones. It just makes no sense. When you figure that, let's use my machine, for example. The amount of ice cream mix we put in is $25, let's say, right? Yeah, you have it there, right? The amount is, because the bladders cost you about, mine is $44, I think I pay, $44 for a bladder. So it's $22 if I use a whole bladder in my machine. That, and let's add some more products to it. Write this down, Brian, as we're doing it. No pen. Very good. You come to a class with no pen.
I'll get him a pen.
Yeah, just grab his. He's not going to take notes.
There you go. He's not going to take notes.
He ain't going to take notes. So turn this over, Brian. Turn that paper over. So we've got the mix is, can I take time for this?
All the time you want.
You
Yeah,
sure?
absolutely. This is fascinating.
Because this is like classroom stuff.
This is great.
The mix is going to cost, presuming you have a 24-quart machine, the mix is going to cost you let's say $25. Just so, because you're in Dubuque and it costs you more. What are we going to add? Let's add 2 bottles of Tyranny. So that's $8 for the Tyranny. A little vanilla is going to cost you 50 cents. Chocolate chips, a quart of chocolate chips are going to cost you, I don't know, $1, let's say. Because you buy the chips, they're 25 pounds, $50, and you're using a little less than a quart, $2. Yeah, make it $2 for the chips, who cares? And that's all your costs going in, right? How much we got there?
$35.50.
$35 to make the product. And what you're going to get out is 6 gallons. Okay? So how much a gallon? $6 a gallon. Am I right?
Yeah.
6.36, yeah.
$6 a gallon. There's 128 ounces in a gallon. So you're going to get 10 servings out of a gallon, roughly 12 ounces a serving. So how many servings are you going to get? 10, and you're going to charge $6 a serving, so that's $60. And Brian, way back there, what's that percentage we're working on?
I don't know, wasn't doing the math, I'm sorry. You know what we're working on?
Yeah. Huh?
You were at
600%.
That's better.
Huh?
That's better,
Yeah.
hearing the numbers in the air.
Yeah, 600% on that. So you're doing okay, right, Danny?
Yeah.
You're doing okay.
Servings out of that is $6 a piece, that's $360 minus what you just paid for, so.
Right, right,
$300 profit.
Right.
On
Right.
one batch.
Right, $300 profit on a batch. So you're doing okay. I got to tell you something. I'll tell you two things. There isn't a product in the world. We'll edit that out, Kirsten. Don't worry about it. There isn't a product in the world that not only has this kind of profit in it, there isn't anything, but also that has a customer base of 6 billion people. There isn't a person on earth doesn't like ice cream. You like ice cream, don't you? Everybody likes ice cream. Little kids like ice cream. Old people like ice cream. So you've got the largest customer base of any product in the world and the highest profit.
And that's good quality ice cream. If you switch over to Italian ice, your profit margins go up a lot.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. Your profit goes up, but your price point has to come down.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You can't sell it for $6. The most you're going to ever sell Italian ice for is $4, and that's for a big portion in an upscale neighborhood.
That's pushing it.
Yeah. So, but everything's relative, and certainly you're going to make enough money selling ice cream at this kind of profit. Now, even let's take this to a further degree. Let's say your fixed cost is going to be the mix. So the mix is always going to be $25. Let's say your ingredients. I make good quality ice cream, and my ingredients sometimes will run me $40 in addition to the mix. Now I could maybe skimp a little and buy off brands, and it'll cost me $30. But this is for exotic great ice cream. Let's say $40. That's a lot of money. In addition to the mix, you can add gold to that mix and it won't be $40, but it's $40. So now what have we got? We've got a $65 cost going in, and we're making 6.5 gallons, $10 a gallon. So $10 a gallon, we're still there, aren't we? I mean, the money's flying in.
Everything seemed to come in around $10 a gallon.
Yes, everything seems to in my store, everything seems to come in around $10 a gallon. And that profit is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. There is no other product like it. Now, if you take the product and put it over here with your customer base of the whole planet, you can go to Zimbabwe, you can go to Dubuque, Iowa, they love ice cream. So if your customer base is enormous, your profit is great, all you have to do is put a frame around it, and the frame is a place to sell it. And anywhere you open up any size store, if you put the words ice cream on it, whether it's Rosie's ice cream, Fred's ice cream, Martha's ice cream emporium, if you put the words ice cream, the door's going to open. And then your biggest challenge is getting the people who've come in to come back. That's the whole crux of this business. Put up a sign that says ice cream. This is your biggest expense. You won't have any other expense other than this machine. Get a machine, open the doors. You'll deal with health department on an as-need basis. Don't make that a stumbling block. It's not as complicated and as bad as it seems. They're really on your side, like Steve said. Just like the city and the county and the state, they're all on your side because now you're a tax-paying entity. You're contributing to the area, the economy, and you're successful. They want you there. I'm sermonizing, right? Yeah.
No, you're doing good.
You're doing good. So just all you got to do is a few simple pieces of equipment and a frame. The frame is wherever you're going to open. You could have 400 square feet. You could have 1,000 square feet. I'm up to 3,800 square feet now because I've expanded 6 times. It's easy stuff. Easy stuff. Like I said, if Brian can do it, you can do it.
Or you can do it like the lady who wanted to know how much do you fluff your ice cream, and then what you end up doing is selling a product like this that is not going to get repeat business. Along Jeff's line, just a similar quick story. Soft ice cream machines, when they were invented and when Tom Carvel, who was famous up in New York, was making soft serve machine, it was a great product. It was very dense and very heavy and very delicious. We built what we called gravity-fed machines. It was the air that you got was just the agitation of the cylinder. And then came along the big companies, Taylor, Electrofreeze, Cappigiani, and they started putting pumps onto the machine to pump up the air. The dairy blend didn't change, but they increased the air from 40% up to 70%, and they showed people how you could just turn a dial and get it up to 80, 90, or 100. And today, if you go to their websites, they'll show you the math of how much profit you're going to make by selling a 70, 80% air content soft ice cream machine. The numbers on paper are astronomical. What they aren't showing you is nobody comes back a second time. The darn stuff tastes like whipped cream. It's absolutely awful. I mean, that's why people go to Dairy Queen, because it is gravity-fed machines. It's a good product for what it is. It's a very low fat content. It should be higher like it used to, but it's still better than what most of the stuff is out there. So it's one thing to say, oh, gee, I can cut back on the ingredients by $8 on making Jeff's product, and I'm saving $8 a tub. But you're not putting a number on, your number of people just dropped 40%. You've got a cheaper price. You're making more money per sale, but your sales, dropped like a stone. It would be like me. Our reputation is very clear and simple. We build the best batch freezers on earth. They last longer than anybody else. If someone else was in my position, I'm sure they could find ways to make that machine a whole lot cheaper, but they just wouldn't see that the sales would drop like a stone. We're number one in the world because we build the highest quality machine. Jeff's ice cream is the best there is because he's using high quality ingredients. It's really that simple. It's like the old line about the baseball thing. If you build it, they will come. If you build a great ice cream, they'll be banging down your door.
Simple. To segue into self-promotion, I do have a class, and there it is. Is that good, Ken?
You're good.
Okay. And it's a 2-day class on all the BS that I espouse. and I also sell a book of recipes and suppliers and ingredients and methodology. And the book is normally $50. Steve insists that I sell it here. $60. Steve insists I sell it for $50. So I have 10 of them with me. And that's that. That's all I have to say. And it has recipes that could keep you going for years and years in your store.
When we edit this tape, could we put up Jeff's email address? And I'll warn all of you who are watching this, because there's going to be thousands of you seeing it. It's xhippie@aol.com. But like everything else Jeff does, hippie is spelled rather uniquely. It's Hippee. So when Xhippee. So when you send him an email and you spell it Xhippy and he doesn't respond back to you, it's out there in the never land.
There it is on the bottom.
So we'll put it up right about now on the screen, and you'll see the address. And write to Jeff. He loves getting email. Get into this business for yourself, and get into it for your family and your future. It's a no-brainer. I'm no genius. If I can do this and really make it successful, and he's getting into it too, Brian, so it's easy. How about another question? Somebody's got to have one. Yes?
At what point, if you're private labeling quartz, do you have to put those ingredients?
As soon as it's ready for sale out the door. If you're pre-packaging for walkout sales, you have to. If it's for eating indoors, you don't. Behind you? Yes, sir.
I was just wondering the main differences between the water-cooled batch freezer versus the air-cooled.
Okay, the question is the difference between a water-cooled and air-cooled machine. On the small ones, we build them air. The CB 350 we ran today, the 200, which is half the size, and the new little 100 countertop for home. They're all air-cooled because they're compact. You can move them around. The bigger machines, 12, 24, 44, they can be built either air-cooled or water-cooled. And all our machines are custom-made. We run production lines, but they are all handmade. But the air versus water comes down to your location. Over 90% of the machines of the bigger ones leaving here are water-cooled. Air-cooled, so air-cooled is bought if you can't buy water. So why would you buy air-cooled? You buy air-cooled because you're in a restricted area like Los Angeles, which constantly has droughts. You're in the desert in Saudi Arabia where water is scarce. You're on a Caribbean island like Jamaica that is dependent on rainwater, and water supply is not readily going to be available. Otherwise, from an environmental standpoint, and being politically correct, you're better off, surprisingly, with the water-cooled machine. Because water is expensive. I hear it all the time. We all, except Jeff, pay very high water bills, and the sewer bills are expensive. But I guarantee you, if you go back and look at your bills, if you go back last year, your bill didn't go up but a couple of bucks over last year. What they call same-store sales, if you compare 1,000 gallons to 1,000 gallons, your bill didn't change much. Water's expensive. It doesn't go up much. On the other hand, electricity goes up every time there's a disturbance somewhere in the world. The price of gas goes up. That's fossil fuel. Up goes the electric cost, because all the electric pretty much is somewhere connected to fossil fuel, whether it be fossil fuel generators or you're shipping it by truck or boat. Electricity goes up much, much faster than water. So here we go. We've got this small room that Jeff has. Give me a break.
Oh, you're still talking?
Out of his 3,500 square feet, he has 400 square feet in the ice cream room?
It's 8 by 10, 80 square feet.
80 square feet. If you put an air-cooled machine in there with a total of 6 horsepower, it's going to take that 75-degree room up to 90 degrees in no time at all.
No.
So you're going to be you don't have a air-cooled 24 quart.
No.
It's going to create, I can take this big room here up 10 degrees in an hour and a half, but you'll never notice it because I'm going to turn up the air conditioning. So every time you're cranking up the air conditioning, there goes your electric bill. So it's more expensive and worse for the environment to be using electricity in the form of air conditioning than it is to use water. And as Jeff said, we get double duty out of the water. It comes out of the machine, whatever temperature it goes in at groundwater temperature, cold, comes out at 108. And it's going through all copper lines in my machine, so there's no reason you can't use that water for other purposes. You could literally drink it. You can certainly use it for the slop sink and for cleaning up and messes and stuff like that, like you saw me do today. So the answer to the question is water-cooled unless there is a definitive reason to go air-cooled. And they cost $1,000 less in water-cooled than air-cooled, yes?
On that water-cooled, can you run like a geothermal ground loop and send it out to the yard?
To reclaim it.
The question is, can you run a geothermal ground loop? Only no and yes. No, because if you're going to make ice cream for 8 hours a day, you're going to warm up the whole system. That's no different than having a tower up on the roof with 500 gallons. At some point in time, you use up the 500 gallons. Sure. If you get to the point of running 2 or 3 machines, I mean, it could be 1 Emery Thompson and 2 soft serves, or 3 Emery Thompsons. If you get to that size, you buy a closed-loop water recirculating system, which looks like a small central air conditioning unit outside your house. We get off the water grid and put you on antifreeze, glycol, and now it's sending glycol that was refrigerated outside into the machine. Machine heats it up to 108, sends it back out for refrigerating. The setback there, the reason not to do it immediately is it's probably about $6,000. But if you get to 3 machines, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Their eyes are glazed over.
No, they're not. These are the questions I get every day. You get how much vanilla to use. I use, do I buy air-cooled or water-cooled?
Keep it simple. Keep the whole business simple. Very simple.
Anybody else? Yes?
Alcohol as an ingredient, or different states, do they regulate that differently? Or?
Pretty much no.
Okay.
That's it? That's it?
That's it.
Pretty much yes. Check with your local department. But again, if you ask, they're going to tell you no. So maybe better not to ask.
Don't ask, don't tell. You asked, I don't tell. They know it. You know the answer to this, right?
I read a novel that was
Is this the book part now?
This is the book part
Okay.
now. I read a novel that was supposed to be Tom Carvel, but it was a woman growing up in the 30s and 40s and all. And she gets to the big size that Carvel got to, 1,000 stores. And one of her grandsons says, "Grandma, come on, we got to update the business. We got to put alcohol into some of the ice creams in the store." Now, Jeff's business is completely different. He has a completely adult crowd. Most of you are going to be dealing with children. Children often dictate where they're going to go to buy ice cream. And in this novel, and of course a novel is not true, it's just hypothetical. In this novel, their sales got crushed after the first week. First week it was a novelty. The second week, the 24-year-old mother pushing a stroller said, "I don't want my children being available to get alcohol ice cream." And it cut into their sales because so much of their business was children driven. I had a customer 35 years ago up in Connecticut who was one of the first people, if not the first I ever knew, to put in alcohol ice cream. And the biggest problem to me back then, because I was young, was having two price structures, because unlike Jeff, where everything's one structure, he had the non-alcohol, which is the bulk of the business, and the alcohol costs more, so the guy was charging a higher price. So that to me was more of a problem than what I cared about, what moms were saying about children, because I didn't have children at the time. And he came up with the idea of a sign that said, "Adults only ice cream. You must be 21 years of age and we proof to buy these flavors." He could now do two price structures that worked well. But I walked into the store and it was hysterical because I said, "How's it going?" And he said, "Go stand in the corner and watch." So in comes this 16-year-old kid. He's barely shaving. "Hey, could I have that that butter rum ice cream?" And they go, "How old are you, kid? Let's see your proof." Oh, I left it in the car. I'll be back." And he runs out. And then you get the other person who I thought was incredibly ancient. It was actually someone my age now. And he's going, "My wife's next door buying a dress. Give me the rum raisin ice cream before she comes back." So it was pretty funny. But I do throw that out there because most of you are going to be dealing with children, and you have to look at it and say, is this going to affect the appearance of my store? And I don't know the answer to that and never will. It'll depend on your store.
Unless you live in the villages.
Then, or something similar to that. Or there's plenty of places that are just outright saying, "This is what we do." I've got one in Phoenix, Arizona, and all her ice creams are liquor. And it's in the name. I don't recall the name, but it's right in there. You know what it is before you walk in the door, no problem. I'm doing a lot of wine bars with cheese, and they're deciding, well, we need to add something extra, so we're adding my Bordeaux wine sorbet and some other ones like that. You expect it. It's a wine store.
I sell regular flavors, and then we have some adult flavors. We cater to everybody.
What's the average age group of your person walking through the door?
150.
Exactly. And they're 150 because they eat ice cream. If there's nothing else, let's break for lunch. Because we still got a lot to do.
There's no lunch.
Oh yeah, there's no lunch. Well, pretend you ate sandwiches. Let me go get the lunch for you.